All right. Well, hey everyone. My name is Emery Wells. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Frameio. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar, Frameio is the world's most popular video review and collaboration platform. So we combine accelerated file sharing, work in progress review, and version management into one cohesive platform. We launched in 2015, and we now have about 750,000 filmmakers and media professionals from all over the world who depend on Frameio for their mission-critical video operations. We serve a really diverse group of customers that fall under a variety of different sub-segments. So we have many of the most innovative new media companies in the world, like Vice, which we're going to hear from Dee in a few moments, multinational media organizations like Disney and CBS, and even companies like NASA. So really, no matter what type of company you are, you're probably using video to communicate something. It could be internal communications, external marketing, original programming, narrative storytelling, whatever it is. It's video. Video has become the most communicative way to share anything, and it's the way people really prefer to receive information on the internet. So basically, every media company in the world is trying to figure out how do we produce more video, and we want to do it faster and cheaper. And well, lucky enough, that's where Frameio comes in. So I'm joined on stage here with Dee Wassell, Director of Media Operations at Vice Media. And Dee is going to share more in a few moments about how they use Frameio. She's going to tell us about their workflow, kind of how it's changed the way they work since adopting Frameio and moving into the cloud for their review and approval process. So I'm going to cover how Frameio is moving the media industry into the cloud. We're going to take a real-world look at how Vice uses it. We'll talk about how security has played a central role in the media industry's adoption of cloud, and then where things are going from here. So first, I want to rewind to 2009. This is me. I'm huddled over a color grading system. It's about a $500,000 color grading system. I've been a filmmaker and a post-production nerd pretty much my entire life. And some of you may be familiar with my previous work. I owned a digital agency here in New York City that was responsible for the post-production of all the SNL digital shorts and commercial parodies. And my co-founder and I, at my previous company, we started building Frameio as an internal tool for us because we felt like the collaboration process was really broken. And so I want to share a dirty secret about my previous agency. About 50% of our revenue was from the inefficiency of the review and approval process. People were booking time with us, they're on the clock, we're working, but we don't have the information we need to work efficiently. And I guarantee you, for anyone that has a video operation, you have lots and lots of inefficiencies that are costing a lot of money. So what are those inefficiencies? What are the challenges that you face when you're creating video? Well, first, we just have a lot of big video files, and a lot of different people need access to them. And so increasingly, these people are also outside of our local network. They're distributed all over the world. And your employees will turn to file sharing services or something like Dropbox or WeTransfer. And aside from the kind of security risk, that's fine. There are some security risks, but they can share files that way. But what about when you want to share an edit? What if you want feedback on a cut? Well, a lot of those file sharing services they don't have great video preview experiences, if any at all. And they may not support the professional media file formats that we work with when we're creating video. And I don't know if any of you, all of these services are pretty much view only, right? There's lots of ways to share video. You can view it, but then how do you communicate around it? I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of trying to communicate in email on moving video, but it's really challenging. And it leads to conversations like, at 1 minute and 10 seconds and 2 frames, there's this thing happening in the upper right-hand corner, and then the thing he says after that should come before the thing he said before, and then that bit we cut out last week, let's bring that back in. It's impossible. You really can't communicate. And the more professional something gets, the harder it gets, because there's more people are involved. And I think what it actually leads to is a lot of feedback paralysis. It's really, when you watch a video, you immediately have plenty of thoughts. It's super easy to kind of communicate and scrub around and talk with somebody in person, but it's so hard to do over email. So you just don't do it. It's so painful, you'd rather just wait till the next day. So something that could have taken minutes might take days or even weeks, and this is where most of the inefficiency happens. So Frameio solves this by having one simple service where you can upload and host all the media files that you're working with. Everyone can access them there. Video files are big, so one of the challenges that we had to solve was high-speed file sharing and doing large data transfer over the internet. And AWS was really essential for this. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the dedicated data transfer solutions that exist on the market. Most of them use technology that's not sort of natively supported in browsers. So a lot of them will use a protocol called UDP, which is much faster than HTTP, but you have to download a desktop app. And that's a barrier for people just kind of using a web app and a browser in the way that they regularly work. So we wanted to figure out if we could do high-speed data transfer using standard web technologies where the user didn't have to download anything special. And we did it. We have one of the fastest data transfer solutions on the market. And there's kind of two pieces to it. There's a software piece that we did, and then there's an infrastructure piece where we leverage AWS. So on the software side, we do a multi-part HTTP upload directly to S3. And when you drag and drop a file into Frameio, we break it up into thousands of little chunks, and we do parallel HTTP uploads, and then we reassemble all those pieces on S3 to have one file. So doing all those little individual chunks gets over the inherent speed limitations of HTTP. HTTP was never designed for speed. And then on the infrastructure side, we use Amazon's S3 Accelerate, which is kind of like CloudFront in reverse. When somebody's uploading a file from Europe, they're uploading to an edge server that's nearest them, and they have a really low latency connection. And then Amazon manages an accelerated data transfer from the edge back to our origin data center in North Virginia. So all of those combined mean you just drag and drop stuff, and it's really fast. Like, there's nothing to do. You just upload, and it's fast, and it's super reliable, and so it's as fast or faster than any of the dedicated solutions on the market. All right, so that's upload and just having one home base for all the stuff that you're working on. But then how do we solve all those kind of communication challenges? We have frame-accurate communication. So when you comment right in line on the video frame itself. And then we have tools like drawing and annotation tools so you can draw on the frame and really communicate your idea clearly. And you can do this from anywhere. You can do it in a web browser. You can do it from our Apple Design Award-winning iPhone app. It allows everyone, no matter where they are, to just kind of instantly be part of the process and keep things moving. No delays whatsoever. You don't have to wait for those kind of synchronous times to schedule a meeting where you can sit down next to somebody. You do it as quickly as you can. And the best part is that all the feedback that you collect, it flows into the creative tools that your teams are already using. So in Vice's case, which we'll hear from in a moment, they use Adobe Premiere. So all the communication, all the feedback that they're collecting on the web app or from the iPhone app, those comments flow right into the timeline in Adobe Premiere. So there's no confusion whatsoever for the editor. They know exactly what to do. They can make that change and upload a new version and just kind of keep those cycles going real time. But most importantly, using Frameio allows Vice to fully control the governance and access of their media. They don't have employees, hopefully, that are using random rogue services just to get the job done. But that can be a big problem. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dee to tell us about how they leverage Frameio at Vice.
Sure. Hi, guys. So let's go to the next slide here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where we were at before Frameio. Similar to Emery's vein and Frameio's vein, we had a lot of links floating around. We had a lot of things we had to view. Even though we were digital only at the time, we were still producing a lot of content. So what we had at the time was a homebrew solution where we were basically hosting our own proxy files. It was a simple click link. You can view it on the web or download it, but it's not very elegant, right? So before we were doing Frameio, we had a lot of bottlenecks. There was a lot of time spent in order to upload it to this homebrewed site. There was this main tool, there was that one. You had to use a text editor, you had to use email, and it wasn't very secure because it is homebrew. And we have 36 offices, and at the time, maybe a little bit less. But it's grown to be that many offices with about 3,000 people in the world globally that are trying to get their hands on and collaborate with this content. One of the biggest things that we do, especially because we're so risque, is that we have a legal review, and that includes our S&P, Standards and Practices. We're looking at it for archival, we're looking at the music, et cetera. So we need to make sure that all of that content for every single piece of digital at the time, and now for TV, is getting reviewed, and it's getting reviewed as fast as possible. And finally, really, the interface wasn't that good, right? You know, we're all very tactile. We like to click on things. We like to touch on things. But homebrew with just text was not very pretty. So we have currently, now that we have Frameio, we have about 400 team members on Frameio. And externally, we're at about 1,600 outside collaborators, 36 offices, and we're using about 35 terabytes of active projects in the cloud. So that is our digital content, that's our social content, that's our long form, our Vice Studios, and our Vice Land content. And that's inclusive of every single office around the world, EMEA, APAC, et cetera. There's 333,000 total assets uploaded. And that goes to about 16K hours of content, 166,000 comments left on Frameio, which, you know, if you're just trying to get one comment, that's enough. So having people do multiple is just awesome. 45,000 preview links were created, and that is really multiple links a day from multiple people. So when we first started using Frameio, the first team that really swung it to us was our Jesus and Miro team. Jesus and Miro was before our Vice News Tonight show, or around the same time. It was before our Vice Live show, which is airing now. They were the first team to really adopt Frameio, and what really had us all buy into it was this legal review process. The ability to have an edit start around 10 or 11 in the morning and then have to air by 7 p.m. We would edit in blocks and have the blocks reviewed, A, B, C, et cetera, from there, from the legal standpoint and from the standards and practices standpoint. So as far as that goes, you know, reviewing the content, you know, we had to make sure that we didn't say things like fuck too many times. So I'm sure you all know that, especially in the broadcast world. But you wouldn't believe it, we were allowed 5 fucks per episode for Jesus and Miro. Now, that's not maybe that many, but for TV, that's a lot, right? So the legal review definitely involved making sure that only 5 fucks were given. So not no fucks, but 5 fucks. There we go, 5. So just to talk a little bit about our team structure. So there's the overall Vice admin, which is somebody like myself and maybe Mike Daniels, who's the VP of post-production at Vice. Under there, I have my media tech coordinator who's helping me organize these teams globally. And that involves a lot of the maintenance, making sure that we're keeping within our allotted time, allotted space and allotted user count. So there'll be monthly comms going out from my media tech coordinator. And under there is each locale generally, and sometimes several teams per locale, have a team manager. And then within the team manager scope is this post-production coordinator who's managing and helping with access, as well as making sure that the assets on their specific team is tailored down as much as possible and maintaining. And they're also managing links. So from there, there's the assistant editors who are uploading the content for review and approval, because editors don't want to do that, obviously. But they do sometimes, depending on the team and the time allotted. So we have our editors who are collaborators versus the post coordinators and the assistant editors, which are team members. The editors and the producers tend to be collaborators because we can really hone in on their access. And then the producers are reviewing the cuts, making the notes, and they're approving them if it's approved or rejecting it if it's rejected. Now that we're on Frameio, we've really optimized the same day airing workflows, which is great. It's one place globally where we have a review and approval tool, so that way somebody in our Amsterdam office can review a piece of content that's being produced in the UK office, or UK can review something that's being produced in the New York office, right? So we as a team globally, not just edits are happening, but the producers are global. So we have to be able to get eyes on it wherever this producer is, whether they're on mobile, whether they're on their desktop, et cetera. The security of this also as well, with the new security things that Frameio has put in place, is really helpful for us. Trying to protect our content, right? A lot of people want to get their hands on Vice content, so we have to make sure it's secure. And again, that's 36 offices, 3,000 people, but you know, about half that are on, or 2/3 of that are on the platform. So we're making sure that rather than this disparate review and approval thing, this link that's tied to a G drive, blah, 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 it's in one place. The standardized legal review process, by the way, is now used not just on Dezus and Miro, but every single piece of content goes through this workflow now on Frameio, which is really helpful. It's a modern interface too. There's several platforms out there that just don't have such a great interface. You know, like I said before, we're tactile, we want to touch things, we want to be able to really feel like it's an experience to go through. So the interface is really great on Frameio. And I did some math with these guys at Frameio. We are estimating a conservative estimate of about 8-hour business days. 100 of those were saved a year with this system. So that's a lot of time. That's 4 versions for Viceland, each Viceland episode, and about 200 episodes a year from Viceland or other various places, so that's a lot of time. And with that, sounds like I'm gonna bring it back to Emery.
Cool. Thank you. So it's been a really long journey for us since we launched 4 years ago, and as Dee was saying about security, security is one of the things that we identified early on that needed to be a core pillar of our offering. So our goal was not just to meet the security requirements of the largest studios in the world, but to far exceed them. So in September of last year, Frameio became the first vendor who was entirely built on AWS to be TPN assessed. As many of you know, TPN is a new joint initiative between the MPAA and the CDSA. It is a new global standard for content security. And we also have been able to reach SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, of course, all on AWS. But these standards really transcend just the technology that Frameio is built on. They permeate into all aspects of our company, from how we train and onboard our employees, to distribution of company software, and even to the protocols for having guests come into our New York headquarters. So with the remainder of our time, I wanted to chat with Dee about kind of where she sees her team going next with Frameio and kind of moving more of their process into the cloud.
With the addition of these APIs that you guys are opening up, we have so many ideas. We're trying to connect just as much as the next person or company around and stop wasting time, right? So we're looking at things like using our resource management platform to create and archive projects, right? You know, literally taking the click out of I have to create a project, I have to then archive it, et cetera. And then also task management we're looking at. So from there, we're looking to connect local watch folders to these projects that we're automatically creating and archiving to eliminate that need for a literal drag and drop or send from Premiere. There's also potential that we're looking at for subclipping content. We want to be able to say, look at only this portion, or I only want to buy or sell this portion of this piece of media. We're also assessing the possibilities with presentation links to present more elegant and customizable screening rooms, you guys just released these new, well, I guess you would call it screening rooms. What was the word for it?
We call it Real Player.
Real Player. So, but from there, right, we want to be able to say, okay, I can have a drop-down menu or update the interface so we can supply much more content than what the real viewer will allow us. On top of that, integrations with caption and transcription workflows or vendors. We're always looking for ways to improve the subtitles and captions workflows because with 36 offices and all of that content, we're producing language versions of all different content, but also the languages spoken in content is just, it's like infinite. So there's so many pieces of content that needs these titles and captions. So anything we can do to help eliminate the work on that is very helpful. And then, of course, we want to be able to more improve the legal and S&P process to help us automate the paperwork deliverables, right? Nobody wants to stare at an Excel spreadsheet all day. Let's talk about how to automate that.